In the tranquil community of Riverside Heights, a newly appointed police chief sought a quiet life after 2 decades of apartment living. He found a modest 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, ideal for his prized possession, a 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429, meticulously restored with his late father. This classic car, more than just a vehicle, represented a cherished memory, the last project he and his father completed before cancer claimed his life. Having driven it only thrice since moving in, the chief observed that the car frequently drew admiring glances from most neighbors. However, not all were appreciative. 4 houses down lived Patricia Dalton, the HOA president, alongside her 17-year-old son, Tyler. From day one, Patricia exerted her control, treating the neighborhood as her personal domain. Her initial interaction with the chief involved a 3-inch binder detailing HOA guidelines and a stern reprimand for his moving truck, exceeding the approved time limit by 2 inches. The chief, preferring to keep his professional life separate from his personal one, simply smiled and accepted the binder, refraining from mentioning his esteemed position. The real trouble began in the second week. While the chief was in his garage, meticulously detailing the Mustang's chrome, Tyler, Patricia's son, appeared. He brazenly walked up the driveway and, without asking, ran his hand along the car's fender. The chief, gently moving Tyler's hand, informed him he had just waxed that spot. Tyler's eyes, however, gleamed with a familiar sense of entitlement. He immediately demanded to take the Mustang for a spin, boasting about his month-old driver's license and his perceived excellent driving skills. The chief, amused by the idea of a 17-year-old with minimal experience handling a 400-horsepower muscle car, politely refused, stating the car only leaves the garage when he is driving it. Tyler's demeanor instantly shifted. He asserted that his father's substantial HOA fees essentially meant he owned part of the street, and by extension, everything on it, including the Mustang. The chief found the logic incredibly twisted and calmly explained that property ownership doesn't work that way. Tyler, undeterred, muttered, "We'll see about that," and stormed off. Within 20 minutes, Patricia arrived at the chief's door, dressed in what he described as her battle outfit, pressed white pants, a blazer adorned with an HOA pin, and heels that clicked aggressively on his porch. Without pleasantries, she accused the chief of being rude to her son. The chief clarified that he simply refused to let Tyler drive his car. Patricia, with pursed lips, insisted that Tyler was a responsible young man and that it was neighborly to accommodate his interests, emphasizing their community spirit. The chief patiently explained that the vintage muscle car was worth more than most people's annual salaries and that he didn't let anyone drive it. Patricia, dismissive, declared she would investigate if the vehicle even complied with HOA regulations. True to her word, Patricia initiated a campaign of harassment. Over the next week, the chief received a barrage of increasingly absurd violation notices. The Mustang was deemed too loud, despite never being started in her presence. Its too bright color was cited as a potential driver distraction. His favorite, however, was the claim that the car constituted a commercial vehicle because of its potential for racing. The chief, with the patience cultivated from 2 decades in law enforcement, meticulously responded to each notice, citing actual HOA bylaws to demonstrate the lack of merit in her claims. This only fueled Patricia's anger. The situation escalated further the following Saturday when Tyler returned with 2 friends. The chief, who was mowing his lawn, heard Tyler's artificially friendly tone asking if he had reconsidered letting him drive the car. The answer remained a firm no. One of Tyler's friends, a bulky kid in a football jersey, stepped forward, attempting to pressure the chief into a quick ride around the block. The chief, his voice instinctively adopting the authority of a seasoned law enforcement officer, firmly told the boys to leave his property, stating the conversation was over. They departed, but Tyler's parting look promised continued trouble. Indeed, an hour later, Patricia was back, this time accompanied by her husband, Richard. Richard appeared reluctant, clearly wishing to be elsewhere, but stood silently as Patricia launched into a tirade, shrieking that the chief had threatened her son and his friends. She dramatically invoked Richard's profession, claiming he was a lawyer and threatening a lawsuit for emotional distress. Richard winced but remained silent. The chief, having already researched Richard, knew he was a tax attorney who likely hadn't seen a courtroom in years. The chief calmly reiterated that he simply asked them to leave his property, which was well within his rights. Patricia, undeterred, declared she would inform the HOA board. She then spun on her heel and marched off, Richard trailing behind with an apologetic shrug. The subsequent HOA meeting, as recounted by Janet, the chief's next-door neighbor, was quite a spectacle. Patricia had dedicated 40 minutes to discussing the dangerous element that had moved into the neighborhood, complete with a PowerPoint presentation on the perils of street racing culture, even using the word hooligan. Janet, finding humor in the situation, mentioned that she had pointed out the only people bothering the chief were Patricia and Tyler, a comment Patricia did not appreciate. The harassment persisted, with anonymous notes on the chief's windshield, mysteriously overturned garbage cans on trash day, and even a call to the city reporting his grass was half an inch too long. The climax arrived on a Saturday morning. The chief, enjoying his coffee, heard voices in his driveway. Through the window he saw Tyler and his friends again, taking selfies with his Mustang through the garage window. The chief stepped outside and firmly told Tyler to leave. Tyler, feigning innocence, claimed they were just taking pictures for Instagram. The chief's voice dropped to his chief voice, a tone his officers recognized, as he warned Tyler to get off his property or he would call the police. Tyler, emboldened, scoffed, claiming his mother had already called, reporting the car stolen after supposedly checking its registration. Patricia, it seemed, had discovered the car was still registered under the chief's late father's name, a detail he had simply not yet gotten around to updating. Tyler gloated that the police would impound the car, allowing someone who deserves it to buy it at auction. Just then, sirens pierced the quiet street, and 3 patrol cars, lights blazing, screeched to a halt. Patricia emerged from her house, phone in hand, looking triumphant, pointing at the chief and proclaiming him the thief. The chief immediately recognized officers Martinez and Davidson from the day's shift, followed by Thompson and the rookie, Patel. The look on Martinez's face when he saw the chief standing there was priceless, a mixture of confusion and concern. Chief Morrison, Martinez stammered. The chief, ever calm, replied, "Morning, Martinez. Beautiful day, isn't it?" Patricia's mouth fell open. Davidson stepped forward, maintaining a professional demeanor, and clarified, "Ma'am, this is Chief Morrison. He's our boss, the chief of police for the entire city." The color drained from Patricia's face. Tyler took several steps back, suddenly engrossed in his phone. Richard, who had just arrived, looked as if he wanted to disappear into the pavement. Patricia stammered about the car's registration not matching. The chief calmly explained that the car belonged to his late father, who had passed away 6 months prior, and he simply hadn't transferred the title yet. He offered to provide the will and death certificate. Patricia, visibly shaking, could only utter, I didn't." The chief instructed Martinez to take a full report, detailing Patricia's false 911 report and 3 weeks of harassment. Martinez readily complied, pulling out his notepad. Patricia, panicking, cried, "Wait, I didn't know. It was a mistake." The chief, his voice even, countered, "You called 911 and reported a stolen vehicle. You stated you had checked the registration. That's not a mistake. That's a deliberate false report." Officer Thompson, having activated his body camera, turned to Tyler. When asked about his involvement, Tyler, attempting to maintain bravado in front of his friends, foolishly stated, "Yeah, so what? He's been a dick since he moved in. Thinks he's better than us." Richard, finally finding his voice, urged Tyler to shut up, but it was too late. Tyler continued, his voice escalating, "My mom runs this neighborhood. She could buy and sell you. When my dad hears about this, you'll be sorry. We'll sue the whole police department." The rookie, Patel, looked at the chief with wide eyes, who subtly nodded for him to continue recording. Within the hour, the street was filled with curious neighbors watching the unfolding drama. Patricia was cited for filing a false police report and misuse of emergency services. Tyler received a warning for trespassing and harassment. The entire incident was captured on multiple body cameras. Patricia shrieked about being on the HOA board and keeping the neighborhood safe as Martinez handed her the citation. The chief quietly but firmly stated, "Ma'am, you weaponized the police because your son wanted my car. You wasted city resources and could have diverted officers from real emergencies. That's not keeping anyone safe." Richard, displaying genuine fear, finally found his voice, profusely apologizing to the chief and assuring him it wouldn't happen again. As they walked away, Patricia could be heard hissing at her husband about calling their lawyer and suing for embarrassment, while Tyler sulked, his bravado deflated. Janet appeared at the chief's side as the patrol cars drove away, remarking on the show. The chief, seeking a quiet Saturday, was informed by Janet that he wasn't done yet. She grinned, predicting Patricia's imminent removal from the HOA board during the emergency meeting called for the following night. Janet was right. The body camera footage was requested through public records within days, and someone, whose identity remained unknown, posted clips online that went viral. The video, entitled HOA President Calls Cops on Police Chief, garnered millions of views. Tyler's rant about his parents being able to buy and sell people became a popular meme. At the emergency HOA meeting, Patricia desperately tried to maintain control, but her fate was sealed. Neighbors who had endured her oppressive reign for years finally found the courage to speak up, sharing numerous stories of petty harassment, arbitrary fines, and abuse of power. The vote was unanimous. Patricia was removed from the HOA board, effective immediately. As she stood to leave, she tearfully declared, "You'll all regret this. I made this neighborhood what it is." Janet, standing up, countered, "No, you made this neighborhood a dictatorship. Now we can finally make it a community." Patricia fled the room in tears. Richard remained behind to apologize to everyone, mentioning that they would be putting their house on the market. The false police report charge resulted in a $1,000 fine and 50 hours of community service. When Patricia appeared in court, Judge H. Riss, a long-time acquaintance of the chief, was particularly unimpressed by her defense of simply being a concerned citizen. The judge stated, "Mrs. Dalton, you admitted to checking the registration, finding a discrepancy, and immediately calling 911 without any attempt to verify your suspicions. You then told officers the vehicle was stolen. That's not concern. That's malicious intent." Patricia's lawyer attempted to argue for dismissal, but the body camera footage was undeniably damning. When the judge announced the fine and community service, Patricia gasped audibly. Judge Hendricks then added an $8,000 fine for the single phone call, plus court costs, and warned her to consider herself fortunate he wasn't adding jail time, emphasizing the seriousness of wasting police resources. As she left the courtroom, Patricia's face was a mask of shock and humiliation. The woman who had ruled Riverside Heights with an iron fist had been brought down by her own entitlement and her son's insatiable greed.